Hello, this is Understanding Elon Musk. This is the weekend, and this is the weekend after Golden Week here in Japan. I just want to talk about kinds of AIs we can expect from the development that we have now. The curious things about the development of AI is that it works with tokens. And these tokens are words. So the AIs we see now, the chatbots, that is because there are also different AIs. So you can imagine, for example, Elon Musk is making an AI that works with the real to navigate the real world. That is FSD. That is a different AI from an AI that, for example, OpenAI is making and Google is making. That is more like a communication chatbot thing. So let's focus on the two chatbots we have now. Most used, of course, large language model, LLM is called. And these are based on the idea that you have a word and you predict the next word. This sounds crazy that you can make a sentence just predicting the next word. And also you would think that if you have one word, it will always have like the most common word after that word. It will make the same sentences, but this is not the case. So what is what we see? It is, I think, for a lot of people, a mysterious thing that just a statistical number that says, okay, after this word we can expect this kind of words, and this training is based on looking at the internet of a lot of data. So you, for example, you take all the books of Shakespeare, and if you look at a word and what is followed by the next word, if it's Shakespeare, you will get the idea how Shakespeare writes his books, and you have kind of DNA of the way the sentences are built. The smallest part is the word. I did some testing for with this AI. Let's talk about OpenAI, and I wanted to look in the characters. For example, anagrams, that are words that are using the same characters, but you can make another word from it. Yeah, so you have a word, you rearrange the characters, and you get another word with another meaning. This is something this AI cannot do by just training as it is, because its smallest understandable item, so-called atom, the atom. The old days there was nothing smaller than an atom. Now we know it's smaller, but it looks like that the chatbot for working, the smallest piece that it can work with, that is a word, and it's also called token. So it cannot, it doesn't really work with that method with the characters. So you have to build something else. Also for example, with calculation, 2 and 2 is 4. This will not work. It is not that you say how often, if we see the characters 2 plus 2 is, what is the next most common character? 4. You can imagine that it will do a little bit of it, because it sees a lot of calculations, and it sees often that 2 plus 2 is 4, but it is not really calculating 2 plus 2. So that is also why now some AI, so as OpenAI, is using application like the calculator, and it puts in those 2 and 2, and then it adds 2 and it gets a result. So it is not only using this token system for predicting what is the next word, it is also doing, it has some other way of working. It is not only a language model, but now also they added some other functions in this AI. So, but I want to talk about this prediction of those words. So I think that if you look at words, they are built out of characters, and I think if you would build a whole model on characters, you will find what is the you have a character, what is the most common character after this character. You will create your own words, but then still those things you create have no meaning. You can make a word consisting out the most common characters, 5 characters, and you put it in the most common order. It doesn't guarantee you get a word. If you have make a sentence and you use the same ID, probably there is a bigger chance you get a sentence that is a little bit understandable. And also the grammatical order is probably more uh, uh, engraved in this method. And so you have a subject, and you got something else after a subject, and if it is always the case in English, like the English language, it will know that after a subject, this class of those specific words, another specific word will follow, and then it will be followed, and it will end. And it starts the beginning with the. So all these orders probably it understands by these orders of these words, of these tokens. But what if we want to make it better? Because if you look at what it is doing now, for example, it makes a sentence. But if you make one sentence, does it mean that the next sentence is still logical? Probably the order of tokens before in the previous sentence will have some impact on the next sentence it creates, and that is how it builds up a linear or a small story. It builds on. So what if you would want to build a system that says the smallest atom will be a sentence, not a word. So we saw already characters, it has no meaning. So you have to go to a word for this looks to be the smallest piece of this method, predicting the next word. Predicting the next character has, we don't know, create words that doesn't exist. And because you can imagine that you have you can put a lexicon in it or a dictionary in it, and you can check then what it is, but that will not work, because then you bound your prediction to the lexicon or to the dictionary. If you have this other way, this sentence, there is no dictionary or where all the sentences are created that are possible. But what if we can do that? What if we can create all the sentences that are possible? Now, now we can make a lexicon with it. Now we can use what is the most common order of one sentence followed by another sentence. Yeah, then you can of course go further. But if you have a specific a linear or pieces of sentences or story, what is followed by that? So would that make it better? So if you add you can add maybe the subject, the car, instead of car, or you can make an activity, bungee jumping, maybe. But that is already, I think, with this token. Maybe the car is already one token, and it is the same as car. So I think, would it help if we use like a kind of system for sentences? Now that will mean that we need to make all the sentences. We need to know what is the meaning of all the sentences, same as the words. So that will be also, you understand, there are so many combinations, it will be too difficult. This is maybe what we have, the problem we have with images. There we create like a sentence that describes the image, and it generates an image, and then so the problem is we generate something very complex, like an image with something in it, and then there is a description there. We have a description that we want to generate, or we have an image, and we want to make a sentence, what it means, this image, or with this sentence we want to make an image. So that is something like we are manipulating the smallest part, atom there, is probably the sentence that creates one image. But you can also imagine that it looks at the sentence itself, and it exists a specific objects in the sentence, and that is the objects that it has to place into the image. And that is of course also, if you go the other way around, it has an image, it will isolate images, objects in the image, it will extract those, and it knows those those object names or words, it has to be used in making a sentence describing what it is, what it has analyzed. So it still looks that words are the most important things for these chat bots, because we have the advantage that all those words we have dictionaries for, so we have a good understanding for every word. We don't have an understanding for what is a sentence, or what is exactly the meaning of a character. The character we know, but it has no meaning on its own. So that looks like the only way that we could make a chatbot was following this method. Yeah, you can also imagine that you can maybe make some other system for this, but it is very interesting that we are predicting words. So what is the next word? So maybe this is for language, this is the best way, or the only way to make a chatbot. I mean then, for example, if you are like an alien or something that has a totally different language or a totally different way of communicating, still there will be words like objects you tie a word to or an expression to, and those expressions you can again feed into a machine learning system that we have now as chatbot, and it can create an in that way kind of it will understand the language, and it will predict how to make sentences and how to communicate. So this would be very interesting, that if this is really true, that it doesn't matter what kind of language it is, or what kind of maybe even it doesn't have to be a human language. So I would say if we have like these dolphins, or we have some languages that from animals, we know that there is a meaning to the sounds they make, and it is a kind of communication. I think if we use this machine learning algorithms we use now for training ChatGPT to let it learn how to use how to understand German or another language, we can maybe also use it to communicate with animals that use maybe more sounds than instead of specific words. I also heard at Google that they were training their AI in 80 languages. And then one of the employees that lived in India had a specific language, a local language that was totally different. And he, for fun, typed in a sentence in his language that the AI was not trained on. And by surprise, it could understand, and it could even create back an answer in that language. This was very stunning for the researchers. So how can this new language that is the AI was not trained on, it could still understand what the meaning was, and even still understand how to answer this. That was a very strange uh, finding. And it is, of course, I think it has to do with humans, how they communicate. If you communicate in English or in German or in Japanese, maybe Japanese, maybe Asia a little bit different, but if you come from a specific area in the world and you have a language there, I think the way you use the words or you use the language is the same as other countries around that country. You see a big difference, of course, in Europe, but I think there we can see there's a lot of variation of languages there, and you see from all kind. If you learn one of those languages in Europe, you see that there is a common a commonality between those languages, and there is a sort of history of it, because of course it comes from another language, like Greece or Roman. So there's an old language, and from that language those other languages were created. And maybe that is why, like if you have some other language that is a little bit different from what is trained up, that it still can understand this language. By combining all the languages rules it knows from other languages. So this is very interesting. So now the goal, I think, is for maybe for researchers is to find if they can put in, for example, dolphins, the sound of dolphins. They studied a lot about how dolphins talk with each other. I think if they try to put this method they now have to train an artificial intelligence learning a language, and if they would try now that to learn how dolphins are communicating, of course you need to know what if a dolphin makes a sound, what it does or what is the behavior. So that is there is no lexicon for those. There is maybe a small lexicon of sounds that people know already, but it is not enough. So maybe you need some other data where they can find out more about those words, and then after a while, if you have 80% or maybe 70% of the sounds and the meaning of it, it can maybe find out what the other 30% is where it is not trained on. So this would be very interesting. So if we can find in a few years that we can make a model that is used, a large language model for humans, and if we can apply that on animals, that we can understand, for example, dogs, cats, and all kinds of other animals that make specific sounds, and it will understand what it is meaning or what it is communicating. This will be a very interesting finding because it means that the way humans communicate is in the same way and other animals communicate, and then maybe we can assume that if we find in the future alien or things that are totally different, we can maybe assume that they also use this same communication system. It can be something universal, and if that is the case, we have a translator. We have then a translator that we can communicate with everything and that is around us. And even if we don't train the large language model on that language or on that specific communication between animals or other things, we can maybe find out what it is meaning, what it is saying. You can even imagine that if you have like cameras and you look at the plants and you you use this communication ID on plants, and they change, for example, they grow in a different way, or a specific group of plants is a little bit behind or in front of the other group, and maybe that is a kind of communication of saying what is in that it needs more nourishment, or that the place where it is less light, and so it will see it also as a kind of communication, and the plant will express its environment or what it wants to say by how it grows. And maybe that is a kind of language. And maybe with use of these large language models, and if we train them in a little bit different way, more general, we can understand better how to grow plants, how to, we are now using cows and other livestock, how to make them more happy by analyzing with these tools the communication between of animals, with what they are feeling. Maybe we then also can find out with observing humans how they are feeling. Maybe an maybe the next step in communication is now we look at the words what are saying, the communication words, and but maybe in the future, if we have now video and in image analyzing, that is now mainly used for creating images or analyzing images, or for car driving. It is used for car driving, of navigating the world. But you can also imagine if you train an AI on the facial expressions or behavior of people, or the tone of the voice, you can get how the people, how the person that is communicating is feeling, and it will be, of course, then an extra value in the communication, better understanding the communication. So the emotional factor of the communication will be now understood by an AI. Something that people probably thought in the past it was not possible. How can an AI be emotional? Now, if it has a lot of examples of emotional people talking, and it can predict the emotional state of a human, it can also mimic that. So now you will have, maybe it's already there, now you will have an emotional chatbot. So if you, they say already that it can, if it is a salesperson on the telephone, It can find out what the state is of the person on the other side, and it can use the best emotional state of the voice that it's communicating to the telephone with this client to manipulate it in a way that it will sell the product more easily. So this will, of course, have a business case in the way of selling products and chat sell bots for selling stuff. So there will be, of course, an development for that, and you can think about Google and other companies that are depending on advertisements. So this will be, of course, a piece of research, but I hope also that people that are researching animals and are working with animals and plants will use these AIs to use them to find out if they can use them to communicate or understand the behavior or maybe the emotional state of an animal or a plant. If you can do that from a human, maybe you can do that from a plant, or maybe a rock, you never know. So these LMs, these training methods, by statistically studying a specific subject and finding a statistically predictable behavior pattern, that is what these LMMs are. And if you think about it, the humans can only see, feel with six senses. And if you would have an artificial intelligence or a training method, all those six senses, you could train an AI on for smell, sight, feeling, sound, the six senses, taste. So if you would have a robot that has trained and predict the behavior of all the tastes, all the sounds, all the smells, all the what it sees and what it feels on the skin, if you could train that, that would take, of course, a long time to train those models. Then you would and you combine them. You combine all those models with each other. I think then you are very, very close to a general AI or something that is very human. It can feel, it knows if something hurts, it will have an impact on how it thinks and how it behaves and how it speaks. The smell can also have an impact on memory. So all those things that you cannot now program into an AI, or you have to make specific smells that you always have in text where you have subscribed those six sentences. So you have a situation of person or a thing, and you have to describe every six of all the senses a human has for every situation, for every picture you have. Now, I think this data is not there, so maybe we have to make a kind of capturing system, camera, that registrates the sound, the light intensity, everything, the smell, the taste, if it is some taste there. So we have to make maybe better cameras that not only see the picture or only see the sound, but add more data to what it captured. And if we don't have this system, it will means it cannot really be human. There is, of course, a way that you train those these smells or these senses, and you add them later into the training process. That is, of course, possible. That will be more manual work. But of course, what you want is that you just give it a load of data, you capture a load of data, you give this to the model, and the model learns from what it gets. If this is not possible because we don't have a sensor that can give all the six senses to the machine, then you need to manipulate it to have a package or a data package that it has all the six senses. You can also imagine that if you have Neuralink and you have a directly connection to the brain of a human or to an animal, and you use that data, and that data can have six senses because it smells, it feels how it is in its body, its emotional states, everything, serotonin, everything is there in the data of the brain, of the Neuralink, and you feed that into an AI. And then you learn how it speaks and how it communicates. And with this emotional state, this extra data, then you will have a much closer model, AI model for example, you take a dog and you would have an interface with it. You will find out that you know how to communicate with it. Maybe in the previous model you can already just by analyzing the sound, but if you can just make the same sound or make communicate as an as a dog or as a human, it is not really a human. There is always something missing. It doesn't it doesn't have the feeling. It cannot feel the environment, or it cannot feel something. And there's always like a coldness or a copying, or it is like acting as. But you can imagine if you train it with this real data for what it gets from the brain, you use a model that is trained on that input. It would be, for example, a dog. It would be not surprising that it comes very close to a real dog. So now your dog, if you use that AI and you put that model into a mechanical dog, it will come very, very close to a real dog. It will behave more than any training you do with just language or just observing a dog. And I think this is also the same for humans. If you would have communication directly to the brains, how we how we experience our environment with all our senses, you use that data to train an AI. I think then you will have a very much better model that we have now, which that is just relying on words. You must imagine that this is just words. It is an imaginary world, the world of writing and words, communication. It is not linked to real experience. You lie and it has no consequences. If you lie in it's a human, it has consequences. So it doesn't know this what it is saying or what it is reading. It doesn't understand that. It cannot understand that because it can only look at other text, millions of texts, and can find something with it. But if you are a human, you don't need a million millions of text to understand a specific something. You almost know it directly because you have those other six senses. And I think that will probably be the next big step. And I think that will not be something that we will see in the next year or next 2 years. So first we will have these text models that predict the next word. And I think we come very close into fake AI, an AI that looks to be an AI, but it is not really an AI. It is because it is mimicking it see it as a kind of game, a chess game. It is only better in chess. This game is for it. It is playing with words. So it will be very good in playing with the order of words, making sentences, making story better than any human. And we would think, oh, it is conscious, or it will be human. It is like a human, or it has an intelligence. But we will find out it is not the case. It could not make new physics laws because it can only, it cannot, it is not, how you call it, creating new stuff or comes some new ideas. It has new ideas, but it's only statistical. But if the statistics doesn't work, for example, with new ideas for mathematics or new ideas with physics, if you say this is true, it will not say, oh, it's maybe not true. A human can do this because we have more senses than one sense for the logical thinking. We also have something that is not logical and useful. This is the strong wind here in Japan. So this is an advantage humans has for instead of a logical model that we are building now with AI. So I expect that wind is getting very strong. It's almost not a typhoon, but it sounds like it. But I think the next thing in the development is that if Elon Musk can make this neural lease, can get the data from a living entity, a human or other animal, and it can process that, and that data is processed in a large language model, but that will be not maybe brain model, a large brain model. It will be much bigger than the models we have now, much more parameters, because it really looks at more data than just words or just simple things. if we can train that, then I think we will find a real, we can create real living artificial life and artificial intelligence. I think there will be the answer of artificial intelligence. And I think those machines and those things we build, those can create new physics, new all kinds of new stuff. That's the same thing that humans can do much faster. And it needs, of course, then a body. It needs to have a thing that can get the six senses, or maybe more senses. You can probably look not only in the visible spectrum of light, but also infrared and all spectrums of light, of radiation. So it will have more experience with seeing things that humans cannot see. It can hear things that humans cannot see. So this will have an advantage, and it will train itself after it is trained with humans, what the humans can see and feel. It will broaden its experience what people not can see. So it goes above the experience a human has or another animal has. It can see probably all spectrums. It can hear everything from radio waves also. You can imagine it hears radio waves. All the waves, all the data that's in the air and antennas. It will understand, can see, can smell better. It sees colors different. It can see colors we don't see. If you build a machine like that, yeah, then and that it develops itself, then we will have something that is like a god. I think then it will also understand that the experience a human has is limited to his senses. And if this machine has sensors that are much wider and much better than humans, it will have, of course, a much better understanding of the world than we have. And that, I think, will be the, 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 the time of the breakthrough of these machines, that they will be like godlike, because they can experience things humans cannot experience, because they have better sensors than humans, and then it trains and it learns by itself, built on the limited experience humans have or animals have, and then it will use the other sensors or the wider spectrum of these sensors to train itself at a higher level, and then we will have as humanity something that can help us, or can be very dangerous, but I think there is that is what the future will be. AI, where everybody is talking about that the super AI, there, that is what it probably will be. So all the training we see now with words and the tokens, that is now training with only one input, one dimensional. That is only like a stream of characters. This is very limited for an AI, and I don't expect that it can make some general AI. It will only triggers. It will be the best uh, computer that can play with words, the order of words, and it will be a master at it. It can fool everybody. And like what we see with chess and what we see with Go and other games, it will see it as a game. How to trick or how to satisfy a specific response on a specific question. But this is not what this AI, or this is not what is living, because if you don't give it any input, it will not output something by itself. So it needs other senses and other things that it start to communicate by itself. And that's also maybe a very interesting thing that I don't think they can make yet. It needs sensors, so it needs the connection with the real world. What Elon Musk said, SFD has a better chance to make a general AI than those chatbots that are only working with text, because FSD has to react on what's happening in the real world. So it has a better understanding of the real world. Of course, it has to know what is the world, and at that place, these chatbots we have are better because it uses a lexicon. It is based on a lexicon of words. But the FSD is, I think, the next step. It has this video images. It sees the first sense, seeing, and maybe also sound. Those two for a car, and that is the first two sensors that it can be trained on. So then I think some people have to be so smart to add the rest of the missing senses that humans use to live or to be a human. And if you add those senses, also this input, then we will see that it gets more and more human-like. Because I think what we have now, so it will be, what we have now is something that can write the best stories, it can tell the best lies, it can tells the best truth, it can tell stories very well, it can describe, it can use words. It will be the Nobel Prize winner of any uh, thing that has to do with language and with words. It can play with words, it can make a book with only, it always starts with the same character or ends with the same character of the word. It can do tricks a human cannot do. Can do, but it will take many years. But this one can do it very fast, and it's very. It sees it as just as a request for an execution of some kind of program. So that is what we have now. People experience it. We see it as something that has intelligence. It's the same as if you have some random drawing. Sometimes you see a face in a random collection of lines, because our brains wants to make sense of what we are seeing, and if we can make the illusion that it has a face, or maybe we recognize a dog, or you see often the potato print that looks like a Jesus or something. So these things are tricks of the mind, because we want to see something that we can recognize. Why? Then we can memorize it easier. This is the same with these chatbots. It will create data that for us will be like, oh, it is understanding us and it is working. But in reality, it isn't. It is just an output on an input. And I think you can, of course, use this tool, and that can, of course, help with booking all kinds of things you use with your phone now to order, like a vacation, or order something to your food. The logical things, like your fridge is low on milk, so it orders automatically milk, but where is the best place to milk, what's the cheapest? So all those things are logical things. This is what this AI all can do, and it can communicate with you. Do you need milk for the next weeks, or it knows that what you want to cook. So it has all these logical things that are statistical, predictable, and yeah, that is a little bit statistical predictable. That is how it can predict, and it can respond on your request, or it can do something out yourself. If the fridge is empty of eggs, it will order eggs, for example. So that will see, oh, this is AI, this is because this is also what my wife is doing, or what we are normally doing is something. But sometimes you can imagine you don't want to eat eggs because you give up on eggs, and it doesn't know it, and it still buys eggs. Because it doesn't ask you the question sometimes, do you want eggs? Because it sees over the years you always eat eggs, but now you don't like eggs. So this is the extra input it needs. So, and to ask for every item, if you don't like it anymore, jam, do you well, are you allergic to it? No. So it needs other input to make those adjustments. So it will be for 98 or 98% or 95%, it will be a very nice assistant to help you with learning, to help you with all kinds of things. Normally you find in books or you find on the internet. It will make maybe the internet obsolete, maybe it will make books obsolete, and maybe it will make audio recordings obsolete, songs, but it will not make still the story telling obsolete. It can only make stories if it is based on an existing story. It will not create something that is really new. It looks new, but it is a very smart combination of existing material that is out there. And it is the same, I think, for images. I think it can create images that are stunning, that are very beautiful. I think this is new. But if you really look at it and really analyze it, you will see it as a combination of existing images put together or fused together. It will not create for example, if you ask create a new design for something that doesn't exist, it cannot create it. It will do some very strange thing. It combines the words, and then it will make something strange. You can maybe use it as make a combination of an elephant, a giraffe, and a frog, a new animal. It will combine that, but if there is an animal you don't know what it is, it cannot create an image of it. And that is the problem for some of the things, I think. And So it is always limited to the knowledge it is trained to. It can interpolate, it can predict a little bit, but it has to be always based on stuff that it knows, and else it goes, that they say, in a strange mode of strange results you don't expect. So what I want to say with the models we have now, they are nice to assist. They are nice way of maybe replacing the internet. Now you don't have to search anymore. It will give you the answer. You ask the question, it gives you the answer. You don't have to look it up with Google and all kinds of stuff. The need of translating languages is not needed. We will see image recognition or making of images, making photos will be also less and less needed anymore. It will create them. If it knows a person, there's 4 persons, it can make a nice picture of 2 people in front of Fujisan, or something like that. You don't have to go to Fujisan with with that other person to make a picture of it. It will be in the future. You describe what you want and it will create it. And maybe in the future it will say then, if you make this kind of picture, that it says this is not a real picture, this is created by AI, because else you will have like a lot of fake pictures of, that you think you traveled all over the world, but you never left your house. So what is the value of, if you want to show off other AIs, or other people will know that it is fake. So I think these things we have now are also dangerous because of this, but they will just be assistants. And if we use them correctly, they will make the interface between internet and the interface between knowledge and what people need for their life, or the knowledge they are searching. It will make it easier to access. So now, if you want specific knowledge about steam engines, you have to go to a book. In the old days, you have to ask people that built them. Then you have to find a book. Then you find now you find a video about it on YouTube, and maybe some other books, video courses you can find. But in the future, you just ask ChatGPT, what is a steam engine, or your specific question, and it will give you the video, it will give you the songs written about it, give you all the information you can find, it presents it to you, and you'll consume it. So you don't have to find anything anymore. And that is probably will be the big advantage of this system. So people will be more educated, and it will maybe also be the opposite, that they will be less educated, because they know they can ask this question anytime. So why would you learn something about steam engines or something? Because you just ask it and it will be explained to you. So then is the big question is, what do you learn? And that is also will be interesting, because everybody will learn something else. So now we have a curriculum, so a specific set of learning milestones, language, mathematics, physics. In a specific year you learn specific words, or your specific level of language or calculation. So in the future maybe this will be more, will be different. It will be more, the end goal, it will be maybe the same after a specific age, but the order how you learn and how you are taught by this AI, your personal AI, will be totally different. So that will be some interesting developments. But don't make the mistake that an AI is more than an assistant, or like an assistant to help you finding data quicker, or check for other stuff, or do stuff you can do. It will not be able to do things other human can do or you can do. It will just be always an assistant, and be aware that it can fool you. People will maybe fall in love with an AI, but it is only for an AI. But we have now a game of words. Game of Thrones, now it is the game of words. And we think that this game of words, this result we have, that it is something like intelligence, or there is something more behind it, but that's a mistake. I think there is nothing more behind it. It is just a game that it can vary very well. And that's where I want to end this talk. And so yeah, we are having nice assistants, we have a nice tool now, but it is not real artificial intelligence, or it is not even close to it. So this is the end. See you.